In the early hours of January 15, 1966, a strange silence covered the city of Kaduna in northern Nigeria. Most residents were asleep, unaware that history was about to take a dramatic turn. Military trucks quietly rode through the streets. Inside them were armed soldiers, moving with a sense of urgency and secrecy. Their destination was the residence of one of the most powerful men in the country. Inside that residence lived a leader many people consider the political father of northern Nigeria. A prince. A statesman. A leader whose voice carried enormous influence across the region. His name was Ahmadu Bello. Within a few hours, gunshots would echo through the compound, and Nigeria would lose one of its most influential political figures. But to understand how that night became possible, we must go back many years, long before Nigeria became an independent nation. We must go back to the history of an empire, a royal lineage, and the birth of a leader whose legacy would shape the destiny of northern Nigeria. Long before modern Nigeria existed, the northern region of West Africa was dominated by one of the most powerful Islamic empires on the continent. This empire was known as the Sokoto Caliphate. It was founded in the early 19th century by a respected Islamic scholar and reformer named Usman Dan Fodio. Usman Dan Fodio led a religious revolution that transformed the political and religious landscape of the region. His movement aimed to purify Islamic practice and establish a society governed by Islamic principles. Through a series of campaigns known as the Fulani Jihad, the movement defeated several Hausa kingdoms and established a new Islamic state. The Sokoto Caliphate eventually grew into one of the largest empires in Africa, covering vast territories that now include northern Nigeria and parts of Niger and Cameroon. But beyond its political power, the Caliphate was also a center of scholarship. Islamic learning flourished there, producing scholars, judges, and administrators who governed the empire. Leadership within the Caliphate often remained within the family of Usman Dan Fodio and his close associates. Generations later, one of those descendants would rise to become a major political figure in colonial and post-colonial Nigeria. That descendant was Ahmadu Bello. Ahmadu Bello was born on June 12, 1910, in the city of Sokoto. His family was part of the ruling elite of the Sokoto Caliphate. Through his lineage, he was a direct descendant of Usman Dan Fodio. This meant that from birth, Ahmadu Bello was connected to a long tradition of leadership and authority. But the world he was born into had already changed dramatically. By the early 1900s, British colonial forces had conquered northern Nigeria. Although traditional rulers still held positions of influence, real political power was now controlled by the British administration. The colonial government used a system known as indirect rule. Under this system, traditional rulers continued to govern their people, but they did so under the supervision of British officials. This arrangement allowed colonial authorities to maintain control while preserving local traditions. Young Ahmadu Bello grew up witnessing this complex balance between tradition and colonial authority. His early education followed the traditional Islamic system. He studied the Quran and learned the religious and moral teachings that were central to life in the Sokoto Caliphate. These teachings would later influence his leadership style and political philosophy. While traditional Islamic education remained important, the British administration also introduced Western-style schools. One of the most prestigious institutions in northern Nigeria at the time was Katsina College. This school was established to train future administrators and leaders who could work within the colonial system. Ahmadu Bello attended Katsina College, where he studied subjects related to governance, administration, and modern political structures. The education he received there exposed him to a wider world beyond the traditional system of the Caliphate. It also introduced him to new ideas about leadership, governance, and political organization. After completing his education, Bello entered the Native Administration Service. This system allowed educated Africans to work within local government structures under colonial supervision. He began his career as a district official and gradually built a reputation for discipline, intelligence, and leadership. His dedication to public service quickly earned him respect among both traditional leaders and colonial administrators. But while many people were satisfied with administrative roles, Ahmadu Bello had a larger vision. He believed northern Nigeria needed strong leadership to prepare for the future. By the 1940s and 1950s, political awareness was spreading rapidly across Africa. colonial subjects were demanding greater participation in government and eventually independence. Nigeria was no exception. Political parties began forming across the country, often representing different regional interests. In northern Nigeria, Ahmadu Bello became a leading figure in the Northern People's Congress. The NPC was created to represent the interests of northern Nigeria within the emerging political structure of the country. Under Bello's leadership, the party gained strong support across the region. He emphasized unity among the diverse ethnic groups of the north, including the Hausa, Fulani, Kanuri, Tiv, and others. Bello believed that political unity was essential if the region was to remain strong in national politics. During this time, he formed an important political partnership with Abubakar Tafawa Balewa. Balewa would later become Nigeria's first prime minister. While Balewa represented northern Nigeria at the national level, Ahmadu Bello remained the dominant political figure within the region itself. In 1954, Ahmadu Bello became the premier of northern Nigeria. This position made him the highest political authority in the region. Northern Nigeria was enormous in size and population. Governing such a region required strong administrative structures and careful political leadership. Bello believed that education was the key to development. At the time, northern Nigeria lagged behind the southern regions in Western education. To address this, Bello encouraged the expansion of schools and training institutions. One of the most important achievements during this period was the establishment of Ahmadu Bello University in Zaria. The university would later become one of the largest and most respected educational institutions in Africa. Bello also promoted agricultural development, infrastructure projects, and administrative reforms aimed at strengthening the region's economy. His leadership style blended traditional authority with modern political organization. For many people in northern Nigeria, he was not just a politician. He was a symbol of regional identity and pride. By the late 1950s, it was clear that British colonial rule in Nigeria was coming to an end. Negotiations between Nigerian leaders and British officials led to a plan for independence. On October 1, 1960, Nigeria officially became an independent nation. Several key leaders shaped the country's early government, including Nnamdi Azikiwe, Obafemi Awolowo, and Abubakar Tafawa Balewa. Ahmadu Bello remained premier of northern Nigeria and continued to wield enormous political influence. Many observers believed he was the most powerful politician in the country, even though he did not hold the highest national office. His decision to remain in the north reflected his belief that regional development was essential for national stability. Despite the excitement of independence, Nigeria soon began facing serious political challenges. Competition between political parties intensified. Regional rivalries became more pronounced. Accusations of corruption and electoral manipulation further weakened trust in the political system. By the mid-1960s, Nigeria's young democracy was under severe strain. The military, which had remained largely neutral in politics, began to attract officers who believed the political system had failed. Some young officers believed drastic action was necessary to save the country. In the early hours of January 15, 1966, a group of Nigerian military officers launched a coup against the civilian government. This event is remembered as the 1966 Nigerian coup d'etat. The plotters targeted several major political leaders across the country. In Kaduna, soldiers stormed the residence of Ahmadu Bello. Gunfire erupted as the attack unfolded. By the end of the night, the Sardauna of Sokoto had been assassinated. His death shocked the entire nation. For millions of people in northern Nigeria, it felt like losing a father and protector. The coup marked the end of Nigeria's first republic and ushered in a period of military rule. Today, decades after his death, the legacy of Ahmadu Bello remains deeply embedded in Nigerian history. He is remembered as a leader who sought to balance tradition with modern development. His efforts to expand education, promote unity, and strengthen northern Nigeria continue to influence the region. Institutions like Ahmadu Bello University stand as lasting reminders of his vision. For many Nigerians, his story is not just about politics. It is about leadership, legacy, and the complex journey of a nation finding its path after colonial rule. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe, like, share and comment what you think about Niger from here.